about that, and they are exchanges of money and sex. People will have their own moral judgment about whether or not that's right. Were you working bisexually or as a lesbian woman?
I was working as a lesbian woman, but I mean, obviously I had interactions with men.
Ever have to counter in your own mind, I think the answer to this is no, that what you were doing was immoral, tawdry, not right?
As far as I'm concerned, I think that prostitution should be legalised, so I don't find that something that is immoral. I think that it's immoral not to legalise it, and I think that's what causes the most terrible trade, and it causes pimps. I mean, you could say that I lived off, or I pimped to a certain extent, but I would not say that I controlled prostitutes. It was a business, and I looked at it as a business. I do think that if you don't legislate, then you do have this terrible double standard where you've got an enormous number of people living illegally when they could quite happily be legalised and live legitimate lives.
Of course, no parliament here, certainly that I can see in the near future, never mind in the past, is ever going to take that stance. Powerfully argued by you and by others, the illegal model in America, the legal model in America and parts of Europe. It seems that the British view on sex, buying sex, sexuality, will never accept that, and would look at what you have achieved and what you have done and think that that was just not right.
Well, it's amazing that half the legislature of this country were in fact my clients. So, I mean, that shows you the hypocrisy. I mean, I once said I couldn't stand up in court and be judged because you'd have difficulty finding a judge who wasn't a client of mine. So that's their morality.
So when I think about the work you were doing in the mid-60s through the 70s, I think of the Profumo affair. I think of gangland, London particularly, and the people involved in that, both working in the trade and buying the trade. I'm right, aren't I? You were right in the middle of all of that.
Oh, yes. I mean, I knew a lot of gangsters, and in fact, I was involved with a solicitor who acted for a friend of the Crays, Freddie Foreman, yeah.
Yeah, and through all of that, did you ever feel threatened? Did you ever find yourself in a situation where you thought, this is it, I'm done?
Well, yes. I mean, I was actually raped, and I became pregnant as a result of it. The guy had actually paid for a whipping session and decided he wanted to rape me, and I ended up having an abortion which didn't work, and then I ended up under a car being 7 months pregnant because a pimp round this area actually thought I was poaching his territory.
Those are not pleasant stories, are they?
No, because he wanted to kill me. Of course it's not pleasant. I mean, I still have the scar across my chin where I went under the car, but you learn to accept that, and that was when, for me, and after the court cases, for me, I thought, well, you know, where am I going? This is not the sort of glamorous brothel scene that was happening in Paris. This is actually, you know, near-knuckle stuff, and I'm going to end up in a coffin before I'm 25.
So what did you do?
Well, I had one or two clients who were what we call regulars, who were quite respectable, and in the end I was just limiting myself to those two or three clients. And Janie Jones was busy trying to build a career in London as a singer, and involved herself with all these young girls who were sleeping with all in sundry. I'm not going to mention the names at the time, but I mean, imagine 3/4 of the pop world and 3/4 of the names that you know from the 60s. They were there, and I was coming back from my one or two clients, and you know, the rooms were absolutely full of teenagers humping these, well, singers so-called, and I just wanted out because I didn't see why I should be supporting something which basically I was beginning to not agree with.
Janis Hetherington is here. Now, I think you contributed to history at a time long before the law changed and society changed, because you did meet someone, you were happy, same-sex relationship, which, you know, in the mid to late 70s, even that wasn't kind of discussed, acknowledged. And you decided you would wanted a child. And now, of course, same-sex couples, quite free to do that, whether it's adoption or artificial insemination, you name it. But you were one of the first women, if not the first, to come public, and it wasn't through your making, to do that. And I just wonder, where, from having the idea to actually going and getting the sperm and then conceiving a child back in the mid to late 70s, how did that happen?
Well, it was actually 72, so it was very, very early on. It was a subject that had come up in Paris, and although I was the first lesbian to be artificially inseminated in this country, certainly I know of one couple who had insemination and was a friend of Poilu's. And it was something that was debated in the parties, the dinner parties that I gave after I left Janie Jones and at David Lee's, who was the solicitor I was involved with. I mean, we had a circle of friends who were doctors and lawyers, and it was just a topic of conversation because clinics, fertility clinics, were just coming into being at that particular period of time, and the huge debate was how you could use the sperm, whether it would be selective breeding, etc. So there was a whole kind of dialogue that was going on that I was privileged to, that the majority of people weren't privileged to. And so when I met Judy, and she already had a child, I was able to decide very, very quickly that if I wanted a child, that was the way I was going to have it. And I had the machinations to be able to do so because, of course, all the doctors that had been at our parties had either fertility clinics or they knew of people who had fertility clinics. And they all knew of my abilities. And I'm not talking about my sexual abilities. I'm talking about my intellectual abilities. And I was fortunate that it was very easy in a kind of way, although I had to have 2 psychiatrists to prove that I wasn't potty.
That was the law, was it?
That was
Before
the law.
You could be artificially inseminated. Yeah. 2 shrinks that got to say, she's normal, she's fine, it's no problem.
Well, it wouldn't matter if I was gay or heterosexual, that you still had to have 2 shrinks at that time.
Nothing to do with your sexuality.
No, nothing whatsoever. You know, it was just, they didn't expect lesbian couples to even come. It was really a facility for people who couldn't have children. I mean, specifically it was because of male infertility.
The actual doctor was the sperm donor.
Yes.
And that was fine. He said, I don't want anything to do with the child. It was exactly what you wanted, and off you went. When did what you two had done as a same-sex couple with a child, artificial insemination, when did that become public knowledge? Because when it did, the world exploded. Because you were rare, the first. The freak show, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it didn't happen just like that. You see, unfortunately, Judy was only 30 when she had a massive heart attack and died. And Nicky was then only 9 months old.
This is your son? Yeah.
This is my son, Nicky. He was only, and Lisa, her daughter, was literally 7 years old. And it was, well, I still am broken-hearted, if you like, that she didn't have the opportunity to see what a fantastic young man he's grown into. And yeah, it was just catastrophic. One minute we were playing football for a women's team, and that was for charity. And she came home. She went upstairs to lie down for a few minutes, and I went upstairs to take her a drink, and she was dying. And she died literally in my arms, yes. And I was 26.
26, alone. You had your own child.